What is going on, dads? I am Isaac, your host of the DadWise podcast. I'm excited to bring this conversation to you with Steve from the Rad Dad Revival. Awesome guy, lives in Florida, loves surfing, loves being rad with his kids. We talked about how to set intentions for our lives, how to stay connected with our wives, and how to be rad dads. Awesome conversation. I think you're going to really like it. Also a little bit in there about raw milk. So buckle up for that. But before we jump into it, I wanted to let you know about the upcoming Fatherhood Primer course. The October cohort is starting soon. So if you want to jump in on that, click the link below. You can learn more about that 4-week course, live Q&A, community aspect, homework, extra resources, tons of stuff packed into this 4 weeks to launch you off on a new trajectory in your fatherhood journey. If you want to connect better with your wife, if you want to connect better with your children, if you want to connect better with yourself, this will be a great course for you to jump into. So go ahead and check that out. But first, listen to this podcast. It's going to be a good one. All right, I'm here with Steve. How you doing, Steve?
What's up, bro?
Thanks for hopping on the podcast today. I'm excited to chat with you a little bit. Will you give people kind of a context, who you are, where you're at in the world, how many kids you have?
Yeah. Who am I? We live in Jensen Beach, Florida. We've bounced around all over Florida for the past few years, but this is a good spot for us. Beach life.
Yeah.
10 minutes away from the beach. We're doing a lot of skating, a lot of surfing.
Nice.
I've got 3 kids.
Nice.
And 12-year-old son, 10-year-old daughter, 4-year-old boy, a rad little crew.
Nice.
And I've been married almost 15 years to my wife, Kelly.
Nice work.
And she is most definitely my better half. Yeah. And
Awesome.
anything good has really come from that relationship. She's really been awesome in my life. Love her.
That's awesome. Where did you meet your wife?
So we were both raised in church.
Okay.
And my first job was, I was just like looking for a job out of college. Didn't give too much thought of where I wanted to live.
Yeah.
And there just happened to be a job opening for a teacher.
Cool.
PE teacher and coach was my first profession.
Nice.
And a little southwest Florida town called Fort Myers, and they needed somebody.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
I just was like, yeah, that's a good start. And then they were on the beach. It was a little private Christian school attached to a Baptist church.
Okay.
And
nice.
I literally gave it like 5 minutes of thought. That's just how my personality was. I'm like, job,
beach.
at the
Yes.
beach.
Yeah.
And I went, ended up working at the same school as her mom, and her mom kind of didn't tell me about her at all because her mom was being cool and was like, you know what, I'm going to give my daughter space. I don't want to
Don't force it.
set
Yeah.
anybody up, especially meeting me probably. She was like, nah. But we ended up getting set up and connected because one specific high schooler that I taught was in my wife's Sunday school class. And they're like, you got to meet our PE teacher.
He's
And
rad.
then to me, they're like, you got to meet our Sunday school teacher. And we ended up meeting.
That's awesome.
And we just happened to be compatible. We were just different than everybody else in that young adult scene and just hit it off. Both like sports, both like coaching,
Nice.
both worked with youth. And so, yeah,
That's awesome.
that's where I'm at.
You got hooked up by your students. That's great.
Yeah, man. So, and we ended up, that student was in the wedding party. So it was cool.
Perfect. That's awesome.
And we honored that.
Yeah, I love that. You talk a little bit about marriage in your Instagram reels. I've just kind of scroll through everybody's stuff when I start get ready for the podcast. But what are some marriage tips you would give to dads? What are some of the things that have helped you guys? I mean, 15 years is longer than the average marriage these days. So what have you guys done to keep it healthy?
Yeah, that's so true. I get that because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and I would say my first general advice would be do the work. And if you're not married yet, do the work if you're married,
Yeah.
and definitely do the work if you're not married yet,
Yeah.
because we have this. I know I did. I didn't. It wasn't conscious in my mind, but I knew I believed like I thought marriage would fix me. It was like a piece of the puzzle that would just kind of bring me
Sure.
closer to where I wanted to be, maybe some happiness or satisfaction. And now, almost married 15 years, the past 3 years specifically have been deep work. I mean, when I say work, I mean thinking about how you were raised,
Yeah.
um, undoing and healing the programming that you've been like living in,
Yeah.
asking, being willing to change and ask forgiveness for things that are not healthy in your life, seeking out wisdom. So that's all
Yeah.
encompassing of doing the work. But um, yeah, you've got blind spots. So if you're not aware of it, listeners, you got blind spots,
And your
you know?
wife will help you see them. Yeah.
And you know what? One of the best things I've learned about a wife, so maybe a lot of men can relate to this who are in relationships, but there's that stereotype of my wife is not this. I just want to preface.
Yeah.
But there's the stereotype of the critical wife or the nagging wife
Yeah.
or um, the dramatic woman. And I've come to realize, like in my own life, like I said, my wife is none of these things, but our women will hold us to a standard
Yeah.
that maybe we're not ready to see. And I have told my wife many times, especially in the past 3 years, like, I didn't appreciate this about you then,
Yeah.
but now, like, the happiness and health that I've started to incorporate in my life is because you saw me better than I was.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing about women is they want us to be our best, so why not?
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've had to unpack? I don't know if that's too personal or to
No.
unlearn from your upbringing that you were talking about.
Yeah, so coming up on 15 years and I'm 40 years old now, so I'm midlife. I would say I had my midlife crisis a couple years ago.
Nice.
Unfortunately did not blow up my life, but definitely growing pains.
Yeah.
Even now, like still learning weaknesses and blind spots. This past weekend, me and my wife had to talk through something and I had to apologize because we're in a very busy season and I realized that I had a lot of codependent, um, yeah, I had a lot of codependencies
Hmm.
in me still. And my wife was the final boss. She was the final relationship where I was kind of holding on to codependencies where, I didn't care so much about what my work, their opinion of me, I
Yeah.
could separate that, like my work performance, my kids, their kids. But my wife, like, I was like, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm still every once in a while relying on you for my happiness and fulfillment,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, I have to apologize because that needs to come from like above me and inside of me, not you.
Right.
And so that's this past weekend.
Yeah.
So
That's fresh.
codependency was a big one.
Yeah.
It's fresh.
That's something that, man, I just read a book called The Healing of the Masculine Soul. It's an older book, but his first chapter is
Yeah.
about like detaching yourself from like feminine codependency.
Yeah.
And it's like we go
Yeah.
from dependent on our moms to dependent on our wives, and that's not healthy. And he's a
No.
Christian, so he talks about, being loved by the Father first and then letting that love flow out of you. And so I was like, man, that's me. Like I need to
Yeah.
grow up, detach. It's
And
weird
there's
to say
there's
that, like,
nothing.
yeah, to have to detach from your wife to actually truly attach.
Yeah. It's not sexy to admit that you're codependent. It's like, but it's also not sexy to stay in that mode. And once you realize, like I've been relying on my wife, like I allow her, I've given her permission to have to mother me sometimes. Like that when you say it out loud, you're like, yeah,
Yuck.
dude, get rid of that.
Yeah. So what have you done? What's like some of that processing like of detaching codependency and become, I don't know how you would say it, becoming your own man, or,
Yeah,
yeah, establishing your own identity.
I
What's that
think
look
that's a
like
good
for
way to
you?
say it. I've kind of been piecing together my own framework because I did not have a father who, or many mentors who I would say laid out a framework.
Yeah.
And so I've had to learn from other people, like read books, like you were saying. Me and my wife did like a container, a mentorship as a couple. So
Cool.
we were like bringing people into our lives. So now part of that implementation is like I've realized the need for me to stop, be silent, and meditate and listen to what thoughts are going
Mm.
on, reflect on how I've acted,
Yeah.
reflect on like what I what I do want in my life, how I want to feel, how I don't want to feel, and then create an action plan. But none of that happens without me slowing down, and I'm
Right.
not always been great at that. So like,
Yeah.
and it can unravel in a day, man. You know how it is, like with wife and kids and work, like you can miss a beat
Yeah.
and they can just happen to you and all of a sudden you can fall back. But it's just learning how to reflect and say like, okay, I want to feel this way. How do I do that? I don't want to feel this
Yeah.
way. How do I avoid that?
Yeah. Do you do that?
That's a big one.
Is that like a daily rhythm for you? Do you get up early and do that, or is that just come when you feel like you need it?
I'm I'm getting there, and I think probably it should be a more than once kind of day thing. But definitely my best days are when I get up in the morning. I've got a little journal I like called the Monk Manual, and it's got
Cool.
some really good prompts. And one of the prompts is one way I'd like to improve, and it also has like gratitude. So that's like the whole laying out how you feel and what you want to do with that.
Yeah.
And so it's not always daily,
Yeah.
but that's what I think the best ideal is. Sometimes I'll running is my best form of meditation too.
Okay.
So sometimes I'll just tell my wife throughout the day, like, you get overwhelmed and dysregulated, and I'll just be like, babe, is it okay if I step away?
Yeah.
Is it okay if I go for a run? Is it okay if I mean, we live really close to the beach. Is it okay if I go to the beach real quick?
Yeah.
Because she knows if she can swing that, and if I ask for that, my mental health is in need,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
And
So asking for it in
she's
times
probably
of
eager
need.
to let you get yourself sorted out.
Yeah, and she does, it works both ways. She does the same for me, and I'll be like, babe, what do you need? And she's like, I need you to take the kids to the park. I'm like,
We're out of here.
heard.
Nice. I love
Yeah.
it. You guys just moved. What was kind of behind the move? What motivated that?
Yeah, so I used to be a teacher and a coach, and I was even a pastor for a while,
Okay.
and none of those just did not, teaching didn't work out because once I started having kids, it didn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
Pastoring is a whole long story,
Yeah.
um, unpacking, deconstructing that still,
Yeah.
and got an opportunity to contract for the power company. So totally
Different.
unexpected
Yeah.
opportunity. So it pays much better, and learning something new kept us in Florida though.
Okay.
But we've been talking about this dream to get land,
Yeah.
and really what that land represents, and more like in North Carolina, where my wife and I are both originally from. And I don't know if it was specifically the land, but it was the feeling of like freedom, ownership,
Yeah.
um, business opportunities potentially,
Yeah.
like sovereignty and agency over our own lives. So we're thinking about that. So COVID happened, we're working remote, and we're thinking like, well, maybe we go ahead and make that move and make
Yeah.
that jump. Um, but you need money to do that. And I'm like, well, what's the fastest way to that dream?
Yeah.
And then I wrote down, I got real specific. So this was a new thing for me. I wrote down things that I wanted in different areas of my life. And one of those items was a mentor.
Okay.
And I wrote down my current boss and good friend as a mentor. He didn't know this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in the next year, I would like to be mentored by him. He's a great businessman, an area where I wanted to grow. And 2 days later, in my mind, I'm thinking about where we're going to move.
Yeah.
We talk, and he's like, you know what, Steve, I know that you have this dream one day to maybe move out of Florida, but if you could commit the next 2 to 3 years to me, I would love to teach you and mentor you.
Yeah.
Like he just
He
initiated
said the
that.
thing. Yeah.
And I talked to my wife, and I'm like, and he's like, worst case scenario, he's a great guy. He's like, you learn all the things, and if you still want to move, move.
Yeah.
And now you can get a promotion or use that knowledge.
Yeah.
Just a great guy. And I talked to my wife, and I'm like, we like this area. If we can move to this area, like, how do you feel? And we just both decided, like, it was the best way forward to, like, kind of create a foundation and a legacy to be like, okay, we'll move forward and it will give us more options.
Nice.
So we moved back down to South Florida, and I'm all in now.
I love it. How long have you been there?
2 months, less than 2 months.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so the land dream, is that, you said in North Carolina is where it would end up, you think, or what's the...
Yeah, we have a lot of dreams with it, but recently we've just been evaluating what we really want, and your kids are a big piece of that.
Yeah.
And they have really good friends here. My oldest is 12, so he's like preteen, and we're like, well, what do they want? Like, what can we do here? So we're kind of in conversation, and we kind of realize, like, there's no, like, God is not on a time crunch.
Right.
So we're kind of breathing.
Yeah.
And we write down what we want, and we talk and we pray, and we see how things develop and what we should pursue. So it's in conversation still.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, my wife and I mean, I don't know. I feel like everyone in our generation is like, we want some land, we want some cows, we want some chickens and goats, and then we just want to get off the grid. And we've just been talking about it for a long time. Her folks have a ranch in northeastern California that we could go move to. But we're up here on 0.1 acres, just kind of doing our best. But it's just it's slow and steady. We just feel like we got to rush through it. Like, our kids are going to grow up, and then they're going to be gone, and then it's going to be too late. But there's really no rush for that. I saw you just posted about raw milk. You guys are on the raw milk. Heck yeah. Tell me about that. We love the raw milk too, and I reposted that story, and then someone was like, "Don't post this, it's false information." I was like, "Oh, okay." Classic. Yeah.
Classic.
Tell me about raw milk. Yeah. Why do you like it?
Man. I joke that I'm a raw milk evangelist. Like, it just sneaks into my content, man, and it is a daily part of my life. And long story short, our daughter had a lot of food sensitivities. Yeah. And she's our second born, and my wife she's ahead of the curve, very intuitive, and she's like, how do I heal? Yeah. My kid here, and she did, the first step was like gluten-free, dairy-free, all this removal, and you're eating all this gluten-free stuff, and then we started paying attention to the ingredients, and we're like, this gluten-free stuff is like a Frankenstein, and these alternative milks have all this stuff in them too, and she wasn't really getting any better, and my wife's like, you know what, I'm just going to go back to the way, like, my grandma ate, and she just went back to, she got really good at sourdough bread. Yeah. Wrote a cookbook on that. It's like amazing. Raw milk, raw dairy, and healed my daughter's like digestion. That's awesome. And my daughter could eat the greasiest Domino's pizza now, and which would before knock her out for 2 days. Yeah. And now, the enzymes and nutrition that you get from that real food is just, she's fully recuperated.
That's awesome. You just you follow up your pizza with a glass of raw milk, you're good to go.
Yeah, we definitely don't eat that Domino's on the regular, but
do you guys, is it legal in Florida, raw milk, or do you drink like animal grade raw milk?
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think it's legal. I think it's pet food.
Yeah,
But it feels like a cool. I'm a little bit punk. I'm a little bit of a rebel. So, like, it feels a little black
yeah,
market.
getting
We
some
get these
illegal
Amish
milk.
farmers.
Yeah,
Amish farmers truck it down, and we're in side alleys, like getting
that's
like raw
awesome.
dairy, and it's like the coolest people ever. And
That's awesome.
yeah,
Stock up for a
yeah.
while. Love it.
Oh, dude, you wouldn't believe if I put my fridge on Instagram. People are like, "How much raw milk do you need, man?" And
10 gallons.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, our daughter we thought was like allergic to milk, and then we were like, let's try raw milk, and she actually digests raw milk better than pasteurized milk because they
because
say it's
yeah,
got the stuff in it that you need to help you digest it. And I was like, that totally makes sense. And
yeah,
like looking into it, I was like, they only pasteurized milk. They boiled it because it was like full of bacteria. It was dangerous because of the industrial farming, because
yeah,
they were doing it in like a big, whatever they call it, a cow factory. And so
yeah, man.
if your cows are on grass, you should be all right. But
That's right, man. Know your farmer.
yeah,
It's all good.
love that.
You just need to stick on the raw milk podcast, man. Tell everybody.
We'll switch it up. This is all just raw milk now. That's It's crazy how beneficial it is. Is there any other like food groups that you have found to be healing? You said sourdough. What else is in your guys' diet?
Yeah, man. Local seasonal food, fruits and veggies. More fruit,
Yeah.
but veggies too. Like now, like everything, people are like demonizing vegetables and stuff, and it's like local seasonal stuff is tuned in to our biological needs. So
Yeah.
we don't stress out about too much, but if you got a farmer's market, like in my house right now, I've got a bunch of mangoes from the neighbor.
Yeah.
I've got honey
Yeah.
like from my neighbor who has bees, and we're in a little beach town, and,
Nice.
and he just gives me honey, and I have a spoonful of honey with my raw milk every morning.
Yeah.
Um, Butter every single day. Butter's been demonized, and I'm like, and I've never been healthier, man. And like I have ice cream. I have clean ice cream. Like
Yeah.
there's organic ice cream that you can get, but even if you go to your local store and get like Haagen-Dazs, that's pretty clean ingredients. I eat ice cream. I'm not kidding. Every single night in raw milk, and I'm in the best shape of my life.
Nice. What's the clean ice? You said Haagen-Dazs is the clean ice cream? Is that
Haagen-Dazs is the cleanest ice cream you can get in the store, probably. Yeah.
really? Do you guys make your own ice cream sometimes, or do you?
Oh yeah, my wife's got like a hand churned Amish style ice cream. So yeah,
That's
she's a good
awesome.
follow. She's got a lot of cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you make it? You mix in your raw milk and some sugar and some ice and then
Yeah.
just shake it
Yeah.
all up?
Sugar, cream. Yeah, and any sort of flavoring you want. And it's a big old tub. And then you got like a metal cylinder that you put all the ingredients in, and then ice around it, and you just
Gotcha.
like crank that thing. So
So
it's a
you
workout, but then you have the best ice cream you've ever had in your life.
did you like pick that up from the local Amish market, or where do you find a machine like that?
Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah? What's it called? I'm gonna have to get one of
Oh
those.
man, I'll have
Ice
to
cream
message you which brand.
ice cream
I'll have
maker.
to message you which brand, but it's a good one.
You guys should do a story on making ice cream on the Rad Dad
Yeah,
Instagram.
no doubt.
I love it. What's the inspiration for Rad Dad? When did you get started with that, and why'd you start that?
Yeah, so it's just kind of like evolved. It's kind of like a tongue in cheek, don't take yourself too seriously kind of thing too. Like
Yeah.
I think Rad Dad is the chuggiest, corniest thing ever. Like if you're wearing a hat that says Rad Dad, I mean that's like probably not a Rad Dad. Um,
Trust me, I'm cool. Yeah.
but yeah, it's you know, I was into skating and surfing. Instagram started. So you're thinking about like, what do I want to do on this platform besides waste time?
Yeah.
And it just like happened on the name Rad Dad Revival,
Yeah.
because I wanted to be two things. I wanted to be a better dad.
Yeah.
Um, Surfing, skating, like hard music is what I like anyways. So
Rad.
You're rad,
Yeah.
whatever. And then the whole revival speaks to like community and brotherhood, and
Yeah.
so I liked all those elements, and it's kind of organically, it still kind of changes, but yeah, I just and then we got into, I used to be a personal trainer and coach. Then we
Okay.
got into the Rad Dad bod stuff,
Nice.
and my Rad Dad bod exercise challenges have actually been the biggest community builder.
Yeah.
We have a challenge going on now, and there's 18 guys in it.
Nice.
And I mean, I've been doing that for 3 or 4 years.
Okay. Nice.
And there's some guys who, I call them jokingly the Rad Dad Bod Council. There's like 5 guys who have stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I hype up what they're about. They hype up what I'm about. And we just kind of plan these, whatever we want to get better at physically.
Yeah.
And invite friends.
That's awesome.
Make friends on Instagram. Yeah.
Is it like a monthly deal? You change it up every month?
Yeah, I've because it's been such a good community builder. I'm gonna stick with it like every month or two. Come up with a new challenge.
Yeah.
And I keep it accessible but scalable, so
Yeah.
a lot of different fitness types can join the community.
Yeah. What's the challenge for this month?
The challenge for this month is called the Rad Dad Bod 300, and it's
Nice.
got the Spartan theme. 300 reps total,
Okay.
and it's a mixture of squat variations, push-up variations, and pull-ups.
Nice.
And and it's all about community and motivation. So everyone's a different fitness level.
Yeah.
It's not this like hyper macho thing where
Right.
anyone feels bad. It's all about pumping each other up,
Nice.
So it's good, man.
You do all 300 every day? Is that the idea?
Some of the guys that have been consistent with these challenges are doing 300 a day and 300 in a row.
Yeah. That's gnarly.
So the consistent dudes, have done that. And then there's other dudes where I'm like, if it takes you all day or 3 days, at the end of 2 months, you're going to be way better than you were today.
Yeah. Just do 10 push-ups a day. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
And in 30 days,
man.
you'll have 300. What kind of fitness coaching did you do?
Yeah, so my degree is in kinesiology, and
Okay.
but I've found all of that stuff to be outdated information.
Perfect. Yeah. Classic.
Which is a lot of college. You get your degree and then you continue to learn. And,
Yeah.
And then after my teaching career, I was in between jobs and I tried personal training for the first time and just
Okay.
loved it.
Yeah.
And not in the traditional bodybuilding type, but more about introducing everybody into movement and health.
Yeah.
So I would personal train like older people. I had a kids program. But that I was dirt poor in that too. I didn't really have the drive to create something out of that
Yeah.
specifically, but it gave me like a passion. So I'm always learning about movement and nutrition, but more for just my own personal health and like the health of others. It's not like, a business I'm pursuing necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. What's your focus with Rad Dad? What do you hope people are receiving from your content you're putting out?
Yeah. It's a great question, man. Like what is happening, I've thought about this a lot. What is happening is community is building,
Yeah.
and I like that. I joke that I make friends on Instagram, which is true. Like I've met my very best friend on Instagram.
Yeah.
So it's just like be yourself. They lived in Maui for a while,
Nice.
and we went and visited them. And
That's awesome.
we do stuff all the time. So community building is a major one, but also giving dads the tools that I see that I need.
Yeah.
And so I'm working on a couple different things, and I'm trying to figure out how to implement them more consistently. But personal and spiritual growth, character growth.
Yeah.
Like I'm working on a framework for that. Like you asked me, what do you do every day
Yeah.
to grow? Like everyone's journey is personal, but to have a framework
Yeah.
to apply that So I've been working on that, testing it on myself.
Yeah.
And also like the physical health component. My buddy and I that I just talked about, like he's a good follow, but his name is Colin Skinner, and we shot a lot of videos in Maui about um, the health stuff we were learning. Like,
Yeah.
you're talking about raw milk and
Yeah.
sourdough and getting out in nature and just kind of this what should be maybe common sense, but maybe on the fringe of what keeps you healthy and thriving,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's a project we're working on
Cool.
too. So I hope people get authenticity, an invitation to brotherhood, some health tips along the way,
Yeah.
and that I'm excited to start launching this like framework growth projects too.
Nice. I love that. What are some of the things you think dads are struggling with the most these days as you interact with dads and uh, chat with them?
Yeah, lots, man. I would say if I had to sum it up, I would say there's a lot of noise out there. So a lack of a path and a vision,
Yeah.
and a lack of a of mentors and brotherhood.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of noise. Like you've got all these masculine accounts, you've got all these political accounts.
Yeah.
Um, it's so much noise, and so we're over informed, and so you're like, what do I do? And that only can come from like your relationship with God and yourself.
Yeah.
But it is developed through mentorship and brotherhood,
Yeah.
because brotherhood brings in accountability and encouragement, and mentoring brings like wisdom, because
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And so, but that also takes humility. So I would throw on a humility and willingness, because if we put ourselves out there on YouTube or Instagram, and we feel so like our ego feels great because we're like, look how many followers I have, or look how I look,
Yeah.
and this stuff, that means nothing if we're not willing to face the weak spots in our life.
Yeah.
So like that's why great businessmen, their marriages fall apart. That's why church leaders have like mistakes that happen, because we're sold into the image. But if we have the mentorship and the brotherhood in a divine path, it'll keep you in check.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. How do you seek out mentors in your life? I know you said you wrote down that you wanted one, and then one came 2 days later, which is, I guess, the power of
Yeah.
prayer, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
That's the whole seek and you will find, right? So
Yeah.
it's so that was new to me. So I would say a powerful question for any aspect of anyone's life is, what do you want?
Yeah.
Ask yourself that. And honestly ask yourself that. What do you want? And then write it down and be willing to wrestle with that. And so first of all, you have to be like, I need a mentor,
Yeah.
and not give up on that. So like, I need a mentor for this.
Yeah.
Get very specific. I just think it's a universal law. Seek and you will find, but you have to know what you're seeking.
Yeah.
Like, what are you seeking?
Yeah.
Like, Um, and the other thing is being like willing to sacrifice. Like my wife and I paid money to do a mentorship, and we had to think about it, and we were just like, we want this outcome.
Yeah.
This mentorship is offering solutions towards this. Are we willing to sacrifice? Is this important enough to sacrifice?
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll have to pay for a mentorship or a program, and other times it's just seeking and you will find it. Like
Right.
there was just And sometimes you just have a mentor for a season.
Yeah.
Sometimes mentors are podcasts and books. So if you're just
Right.
like, so I would say mindset's a big one,
Yeah.
like a hunger.
Right. Did you guys do like an online mentorship? Is that the one when you talk about the one you did with your
It
wife,
was
or?
it was mostly online because her name is Michelle Chatham, but she is based in Maui, and we're not in
Okay. Yeah.
Maui,
Yeah.
and it just kind of worked out,
Yeah.
where she was doing a couples mentorship,
Cool.
and it just so happened that our friends were doing it, and there was
Nice.
two other couples who were kind of deconstructing their faith journey. Like everybody was in the same place,
Yeah.
and strong women in the marriages, like everybody was in the same place, or similar places. And but we also went to Maui
Okay.
and got to do some of that work there. But
Cool.
that was an opportunity that presented itself and was super impactful. Yeah.
Yeah. What were some of like the key takeaways from that? Was it like a year-long deal or ongoing?
No, it was probably it 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 was supposed to be 3 months, but turned into 5 months,
Okay.
and it was a weekly check-in. But there was books we read, and a lot of it was, so the weeks would alternate between a group call
Yeah.
where you're witnessing what these other couples are learning,
Yeah.
and then the off week was where we had a one-on-one call with our mentor,
Yeah.
and like you had to bring something to the table. And the biggest takeaway is like we are empowered to change.
Yeah.
So that mentor, that book, that prayer is not going to change me or you. It is the power that we have access to, that we can take action on.
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest takeaway,
Hmm.
is like, oh, I can change this
Yeah.
with God's help. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. What are some of the like the resources, books, I would say, for marriage that you've read that have been helpful for you?
Um, Not many. Let's see.
If there's none that come to mind, that's all
Um,
right.
well, I would say a really good book for just understanding manhood, is Wild at Heart by John
Cool.
Eldridge.
Yeah.
And I do think there's really something to learning about masculine and feminine energies and compatibility.
Yeah.
And that book is great about spelling out what most men, I don't want to say it's for all men will feel this way, but
Yeah.
like, it talks about a battle to fight, an adventure to live, a beauty to rescue,
Yeah.
and your wounds. It
Yeah.
gets into those four things, and like all of those like really like spoke to my heart
Yeah.
and are still true. Um, and except for the wound, I was like, I don't got any wounds. And then like
You
10
picked
years
some
after
up.
reading the book, I'm like, oh yeah.
You get some along
So
the way. Yeah.
that's a good one. Another another book that was really impactful to me, and it's not a marriage book. Um, I mean, honestly, I'll say the book first, but The Alchemist, and that's just like a fictional book about
Okay.
like your journey in life. But that's a really good one,
Huh.
and I go back to that all the time.
I haven't read that
And
one.
a big a big takeaway in that book is it says, uh now I'm forgetting what it says, but um basically about how the universe conspires when you really want something. And you could say the
Hmm.
universe is God, obviously.
Sure.
You'd be like, okay, like when you really, really want something, like you watch this journey unfold.
Right.
And so it's a really good book. But
Interesting.
marriage is honestly super straightforward. I don't think we need any books.
Yeah.
It really is about mutual submission.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is about like learn each other, understand each other, serve each other, forgive each other. Stuff that anyone who's read scripture knows these things,
Yeah.
but it's the application of those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, the New Testament's a great read
There you
for
go for a
anyone.
marriage book.
Yeah.
I love that. How have you come out of your deconstruction of the church? I'll give you a little background on me so you can help me work through my
Yeah,
own mess. But I was a
together.
youth pastor, creative arts director because I can do videos and I
Yeah,
had a computer, so I was the most qualified person to do it.
yeah,
And I worked with my dad was the main pastor, planting pastor, and so I did middle school, high school, college, and then eventually was like, man, I'm burning out. This isn't good for me and my family, and had to
yeah,
move out of it. And then as we moved out of the church, we lost a lot of friends, we lost our job, lost
yeah,
a church community. So it was a long journey out, and it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But it sounds like you kept your faith through your journey. How have you thought differently now? How have you kind of emerged from that, or are emerging, I guess?
yeah, yeah. Emerging is a good word. Faith is faith, and it's a journey. And I've learned to be okay with it being a journey.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I don't stress so much about um, getting it right all the time.
Yeah.
And I still think, as far as like, what about the faith I was raised in do I still hold on to? I think the teachings of Jesus are unrivaled.
Yeah.
Um, I just haven't found anything better, but it doesn't mean that, you know, and I also would say, to complement that, all truth is God's truth.
Right.
So I've opened up, like, well, what can I learn from this faith or that man or that woman?
Hmm.
And I'm just not so stressed about the denomination or the ins and outs
Yeah.
at all, but I'm definitely still on the journey. And yeah, we'll see how it develops. Like, I'm learning right now a lot about um indigenous
Okay.
like beliefs,
Huh.
because I've got a friend in Maui,
Yeah.
he's very Hawaiian,
Yeah.
and like their understanding of spirit is like so cool too. And you
Yeah.
learn the relationship with like the earth and their role in that and like all these things. So it's like I don't close myself off, um, but yet I would say my grounding feeling is, if I had to take it all back, um, like I love the parable of the prodigal son
Yeah.
and the father as God. That is a grounding image for me,
Yeah.
you know? And so if anybody throws anything at me and it doesn't look like love and forgiveness, I
Yeah.
shake it off.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like when you get too deep into the church world, you start gatekeeping and trying to figure out what's in and what's out. And Jesus is a lot bigger than that, and he's way cooler than
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
there's a ton to learn from all sorts of different people. But yeah,
Yeah.
are you guys involved in church in any way, or have you kind of uh, taken a
Yeah,
backseat on that?
so in the we had left it to the side because I was very jaded, and so I could jump on a church website and be like, I don't think it's gonna be a good fit for us because I spoke the language,
Yeah, yeah,
and then we during my deep in my deconstruction, I got connected with this Episcopalian priest,
okay,
a young man. He was like my age. They
okay,
called him the young pastor. And I remember having a conversation with him, and I'm like, I just don't know how I feel like this or that. And at the end of our conversation, I was just like, so trained to be submissive and defer to authority,
hmm.
spiritual authority in my life. I was like, thank you so much for like taking the time. And he's like, it's my job. It's my job. What are you talking about? So right before we left the first time, we were in this area a little bit. We went to a couple services, and it was the opposite of the aspiring megachurch that I worked in,
Yeah.
where they had um, very simple. They based their service around like the communion,
Yeah.
like, hey, all are welcome here. And they would have kids read the scripture. And it was
Huh.
like a beautiful kind of, it didn't have to be perfect,
No. Yeah. It's not well
you know?
produced.
They didn't care about it being well
Yeah.
produced. And it was so refreshing and different. So we're moved back here now,
Yeah.
and we haven't been able to take a breath to get back involved, but 100% that's the place we will go.
Yeah.
And we're actually kind of looking forward to some like spiritual community, you know?
Yeah. It's nice to start rubbing shoulders again. COVID happened and we kind of did like a little mini house church with some friends and that kind of
Yeah.
fizzled. And then we've just found like a old reformed church that's just really chill. They
Yeah.
just do they go by the calendar, the church calendar, and they do communion, and it's it's not fun. It's just you go
Yeah.
and it's good to like sing together and just be together with other folks. So, um,
Yeah. It's cool.
yeah, even getting past all the jadedness is tough, but um, how
Yeah.
do you involve your kids in your Rad Dad stuff? Are they all surfing and skating and running and jumping with you? How do you guys stay connected that
Yeah.
way?
Dude, it's just a lifestyle, man. Like, um, forcing a kid to do anything, forcing anyone to do anything is like we just believe in being authentic. Um, so I am surfing, I'm skateboarding, I'm running and training for Spartan obstacle course races, and um, I invite my kids into that stuff. And like, not all of them skate, not all of them surf, all of them run Spartan races, which is
Yeah,
crazy because they're super hard.
that's awesome.
And and it's just cool. They're developing. So my son, we did a challenge, like a push-up challenge. He's 12,
Yeah,
and he told me, he's like, I want to feel strong. I want to look good.
yeah,
You know,
heck yeah,
and he stuck with it. He like did not let me miss a day,
that's
and
awesome.
the dude just ramped up. And yeah. So I would just say, living your life. It's like I could compare it to the bad examples of Christian witnessing. It's like someone's telling you that you're going to hell. They're like miserable people or whatnot.
Yeah,
Like, why would I want anything that you have? You're
yeah,
miserable. But if your parents are thriving and happy and joyful, like they're like, yeah,
whatever he's doing is all right.
like,
Yeah,
and I don't care if they do anything I do. Like I had this conversation with my son 2 days ago. I asked him, he asked me to get up early with him and train for soccer because he decided to do soccer. I'm like, okay.
yeah,
He did not do his best.
yeah,
So he came home. I'm like, why do we get up early and do that? And I was like, why do you want to do soccer? And he said, because you want me to. And I'm like,
no,
I don't care if you do soccer. And I said, you're old enough now to where, like, you got to answer the question, what do you want?
yeah,
Well, how do you want to feel? What do you want to do? How do you want to eat?
yeah.
And he was like, oh, okay. I
Oh,
got responsibility. And,
I'll have to figure that
you
out.
know, yeah. So why? It goes back to that what do you want question, you know?
Yeah, I love that. How do you guys deal with? I always like to ask people how they deal with like sibling conflict. What's your strategy for that? Because we've got
Yeah,
7 and a
man.
5 and an almost 3-year-old, so we're in the thick of it.
Yeah, I would say there's no formula,
Yeah,
but it's super important that we think about parenting hacks. But one great parenting hack is, as parents, we have to be emotionally regulated
yeah,
so that we can bring calm to the storm. So if we find ourselves not emotionally regulated, do not even try anything. Don't even enter into the battle.
yeah,
Like, take a moment, take a breath, come back, and then you can start to work on a lot of it's just kids. Like, your kids are a little bit younger.
yeah,
Is they need that emotional regulation. They are most likely tired, hungry, or they don't know how to handle their emotions because developmentally.
Yeah.
So you coming in there, so there's a fight. They're fighting over that. A lot of times I feel with that age is just, even my 12 and 10-year-old, like separating them.
Yeah.
And I told my daughter, she was like just crying, and she's usually 90% of the time super happy. And my wife's like, I don't know what to do. She's losing her. And I went in there and I just laid down next to her in bed. I'm like, babe, don't say anything.
Yeah.
I just want you to lay here.
Yeah.
Do not say a word. And she just snuggled on my shoulder. We just laid there. I turned on a little skate video that we watched together, and she was totally fine. She just needed to like
Take a breath.
come back
Yeah.
down, you know.
Yeah, I love that.
And when we do screw up, just modeling, asking for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry I snapped at you. Daddy shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Will you forgive me? You know,
Yeah.
that will happen many times.
Yeah. That's like our main job as dads, is to apologize for
No doubt.
what we've
No
been
doubt.
doing. I love it. As we get kind of near the end of the podcast, will you share like something you're reading right now? Do you have a book on your nightstand?
Dude, I got a lot of books on my nightstand.
What's the most recent one that you've opened? Because I've got the stack too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm always prioritizing which one to read, but Intentional Fatherhood by John Tyson.
Yeah.
My son's 12.
Yeah.
And so that initiation phase is big on my mind right now.
Yeah.
And that was never walked out for me. So
Yeah.
this book is a good framework for that.
What's some of have you started initiating any of that yet, or implementing? What's some of the stuff you've been trying out?
Yeah, so I'll just say this real quick. When we went to Maui, I was like, you know what? I'm going to use this as an opportunity to start that initiation journey with my son. And I told him that. And I'm like, because there's cliff jumping, there's volcano climbing, there's all this like crazy adventure stuff there. And I just made it up on the fly, but I based it on, the baptism of Jesus, where it was the Father and John the Baptist kind of involved in that. And so I invited my friend. I told him what I wanted to do. I'm like, hey, man, would you be a part of this like initiation ceremony?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And so we took my son down to this popular cliff jumping place. And I said, hey, man, you're getting older. You're going to take on more responsibility. This is what it means to be a man. In my mind, which is taking on responsibility, deciding who you want to be.
Yeah.
And then my friend spoke to him to witness that too.
Yeah.
And we're like, we've always got your back. Like, we're always going to support you no matter what. And I said, we're going to start this off, and you are going to fully send it off this cliff first.
Yeah.
And that like belief, I wouldn't say he's like just a naturally risky kid.
Yeah.
With that belief, dude, I just witnessed him just like fly off that thing, and he was pushing it. And so I got to see the power of initiation.
Yeah.
Which surprised me because I'd never seen it before.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I read that one. My oldest is 7, so I'm like thinking towards it, but not quite there yet. So yeah,
Full circle back.
Yeah, I also am like thumbing through one from Chris Bruno. He wrote one called The Man Maker Project, which is kind of along the same lines of that. So it's longer. He's more of a storyteller, so it's got more words in it, but it's good. Are there other books you're on in your stack?
Yeah, there's a lot of books. Yeah, like you said, like I'm reading a book from my friend. It's called Bowl of Light, and it's like Hawaiian spiritualism.
Interesting.
So I'm like reading that and learning some of those like beliefs, and then kind of like letting that challenge me.
Yeah.
And and then
they've probably
those are the I would say.
I was gonna say they've probably got great initiation stuff. The tribal cultures are awesome at initiating men and bringing men out. So I don't know if that's in any of that, in that book at all, but yeah,
it's cool, man. It's cool because it just adds. like all truth is God's truth, and there's so many similar myths and stories, and you're like, oh yeah, like Jesus spoke to that thing that they already believe.
Yeah,
So it's kind of cool like
that's
that. So
awesome.
I'm kind of opening up my viewpoints on that. But those are the two
Cool.
that I'm actually trying my best to read right now.
I love it. Awesome. How can dads connect with you on the internet or in real life?
Yeah, like I pride myself in making friends on Instagram.
Nice.
So rad_dad_revival.
Nice.
Start a conversation, especially if you like raw milk or got questions. And yeah, let's just get to know each other, and then join a Rad Dad Bod challenge anytime
Cool.
you want. That's mostly what I've got going now,
I
man.
love it. What's the Rad Dad? Is it like a group chat or how do they get involved in that?
Yeah, we got a
What's
WhatsApp,
up?
and
Nice.
yeah.
Cool.
So we'll see. I think there will be, as this community develops, it'll develop into other spheres outside of physical fitness too. But right now, that's where I'm building the community.
Cool. I love it. Well, thanks for hopping on. It's great talking with you. Yeah. See you.